So good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the AstroCafe. And today we have a special guest, and we are pleased to have Mr. Sergei Bobrov from Moscow and from Moscow Astronomy Club to be our guest speakers. He had over 30 years of experience in astronomy, and in fact, he also had a few years of experience in the space industry. I know you are curious, but yeah, I'm not going to tell you more about him yet. I will left the details to him. And if you have any question, please feel free to drop down your question into the chat section or comment sections. And at the end of his talk, um, he will answer your question. Hopefully, yeah, we'll pick some question for him to answer. Yeah. So for now, without further delay, let me welcome Mr. Sergei Bobrov.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I think Sergei, you can start now.
Okay, thank you, Chai. Thank you, Chai. Hello, everyone. Good to see you here at this virtual Astro Cafe. So, as Chai kindly introduced me, yes, I'm astronomy amateur from Moscow. I think I was crazy about astronomy for, I don't know, for 30 years or so, since my school years. Yeah. And as a passionate astronomer, and I travel a lot, and by chance, I had a great chance to visit Penang and spend a few months there. That's where I met Chai and Dr. Chong and all the nice people at the observatory. So some of you know me already. So we decided I was given kind of a hint, so to make a kind of a presentation about astronomy in Russia, as in general, because Malaysia is far away, Russia is far away, but the sky above is the same. And since here in Russia we have huge astronomical tradition, both professional and amateur, so I've decided to make a kind of a presentation, just some general stuff, maybe without getting too much deeper, but just to give you a general idea about the development and the history of professional and amateur astronomy in Russia. So, of course, it's going to encompass 300 years. So, I've made quite a succinct presentation, so just to make it more or less brief. So, as Chai said, you can stop me anytime if something looks interesting for you. You can stop me and just tell me, okay, Sergei, what is it? And I will be pleased to answer all of your questions. So let's just feel informal and relaxed. And as I go on with the presentation, so please just don't hesitate to ask me questions, and I will happily answer. Thank you all. So Chai, just tell me when I can start.
No problem. I will let you know if I notice there's any questions.
Okay, so I'm starting.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, just check if you can see the whole presentation. Okay.
Okay.
You will tell. Chai, how is the picture?
Not yet.
Just give me a second.
Yeah, no problem.
And now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
do you see? You get the picture?
Yes, clear.
Okay, so I will just go slide by slide.
Yeah, maybe you can just remove the bottom message.
Yeah, now it's okay?
Perfect. Yep.
Super. Okay, so basically I will just give a broad representation how it all started in Russia and what we have now, and I will cover some basic things and about the observatories and about the astronomy institutions and about everything what we have here. So let's begin from the historical background, how it all started. Actually, it all started roughly 300 plus years ago. That's how it started. So from here we can see that the history of astronomical research in Russia, this is the end of 16th century. So the first private observatory was built by Jacob Bruce. This guy, he was from Scotland, interesting. He was from Scotland, and he was the first, we can say, professional astronomer in Russia. So he was publishing astronomical calendars and star atlas. And in 1701, this guy, he was a wealthy man. Yeah, he was a wealthy man, and he built his own first dedicated astronomy observatory. It was like a mixed, all mixed up with the mathematics and astronomy and navigation, because definitely astronomy is linked to navigation, to the merchant marine and everything. So on the left side, you can see the tower. This is the first astronomy tower in Moscow and in Russia as well. So you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 floors, and this building existed until 1920s or so, and this was the first observatory. And navigation school. On the right side, you can see the commemorative medal and the year of opening of this navigation school. It's written navigation school. So this is how it all have started. So now we can speak about the Emperor Peter. He was a great king of Russia and definitely great modernizer. We call him the great modernizer. So he was a student. While he was still a prince, not the emperor, he was attending Bruce School of Astronomy. And he was deeply interested. And as I've read, he mastered the full course of astronomy and navigational practice. He even used this method of determining longitude by lunar distances. So he always supported astronomy and mathematics. So actually, he was the founder of Russian Academy of Sciences. So together Peter and Bruce, in 1698, they visited Britain, and they've been to a Royal Observatory in Greenwich. So they've been observing Venus with the first astronomer royal, John Flamsteed. So he was really impressed, and he always emphasized that it's scientific approach and scientific development is a matter of utmost importance for any country. So actually, this king, this emperor, he really put his personal effort to establish a first-class Academy of Science. And that's how it all started. So then, in 1725, a new city is laid up, so St. Petersburg, and it was decided to build academy and university, and of course, the observatory. So here is just a panorama of St. Petersburg, and the academy was somewhere here. It's the Neva River. It's a lovely place. I like St. Petersburg. So it was when the place where the first observatory was actually built. Before, there have been some small private observatory, but here we can see the first ever professional one in Russia. It's just a few slides, just to take a look. A slide about this, how St. Petersburg look. It's in winter. Yeah. It's in summer. Yeah, and effectively, they've been planning to build a new observatory from scratch. So they've called an architect from Italy, and so he could compile the first ever observatory. Just a few words about St. Petersburg, because later on we're going to talk about this place a few times, and this is a typical thing which is called the White Nights. You can take a look at these pictures. It's taken after midnight, around 1 or 2 a.m. So because the St. Petersburg is placed at latitude 60, it's more or less like Alaska and Greenland at least southern part of Alaska and Greenland. So May to August is a midnight sun. Actually, the sky never gets dark, and you can even read at night. Yeah. So we call it white night season. So maybe such a condition is not the perfect for astronomy, since I would say from May to August, you don't have a dark sky as such, but nevertheless, the first observatory was located here. So about the climate in St. Petersburg, so how many clear nights we have there, I would say 120, maybe 150 per year. It's definitely not that much. Again, from this picture, we can see how St. Petersburg looks at mid-June. So you see the sky is not dark at all. You can read at night, actually. You can read the newspaper. Yeah. Because the sunset is around, if I'm not wrong, it's around maybe 11 p.m. is sunset, and sunrise already maybe 2 a.m. or so. Nevertheless, the first ever observatory in St. Petersburg was built there. Here is this place, here is this building, and from this picture we can see here is actually there are 3 floors, 1, 2, and 3, and even the small chamber above to observe the solar eclipses. Yeah. So this was the first dedicated astronomical observatory in Russian Empire. Now it's a museum, and it's beautifully preserved. Now it's public museum, so you can see one of the, I think, finest collection of historical telescopes and astronomical watches and celestial globes and everything. I've been there a few times. So if you ever had a chance to go to St. Petersburg, please don't miss. I'll show some pictures how it looks inside. Now it's beautifully restored. Yeah, and here. So it's a kind of a central observatory hall. So you can see a few telescopes. Most of them are made in UK. So by that time, Russia didn't have own optical production. So most of the telescopes were brought from UK, from France maybe. And you can see all of them are refractors on alt-azimuth mount. All of them. You see this beautiful tripod, huh? So lovely. And those telescopes, I think by size is maybe 2-inch, 3-inch. This one is 4-inch, and this one I think is also 4-inch. So all of them are beautifully restored and in very good conditions. Actually, one of them was used to conduct a scientific experiment, of which we're going to talk a bit further on. So just one more photo from this observatory. So these beautiful old refractors, 3- and 4-inch, and celestial globe, and everything. You can see the armillary sphere, an astronomical watch. Yeah. So now it's a museum open for everyone. So, and all these instruments, again, they're originals. It's not a copy just for the museum. It's original instruments from those 300 years ago. So,
I think I have a question.
Yes, Jay.
Sergei, yeah. Are those telescopes still functioning? I mean, optically?
Absolutely functioning. I was surprised. Yes, you know, I was also surprised, same as you. I was asking the museum attendant, and one of those museum attendants He's an amateur astronomer, and I asked him, "Are they still functional?" He said, "If you don't believe, okay." So we just came by, and I checked the lens. Lens is okay, and both the objective lens and you see this eyepiece, everything is working. Everything is working. So actually, you can use them if you want. So
Wow.
they're in very good condition, in very good condition, in perfect condition.
Fantastic.
Yes, interesting. When later in St. Petersburg, they built a professional observatory in Pulkovo, we'll cover that later. These instruments were immediately labeled as museum rarities, just to be kept for the future, because they already knew they're gonna make a museum. Yeah. Yes.
That's
Okay.
cool.
Let's move on. Yes. And so one of these telescopes was used for I think, Russia's first ever, and I think historically largest astronomy discovery in Russia. So on the right side, we can see a picture of a man. He's a very talented man, Mikhail Lomonosov. Maybe some of you heard about Lomonosov State University in Moscow. It's named after him. So he was an astronomer and polymath. He was a talented man. What's more interesting, he is from poor family. He was born in poor family. They were trading some fish in the north. So his father was a fisherman. So he went to St. Petersburg to study. From the very beginning, again, because by the time it was the education was mostly only for rich people, so he took few jobs to earn enough money to study. And so he was such a gifted man. He was interested in everything: astronomy, poetry, geometry, mechanical engineering. So anyway, he has discovered the atmosphere of Venus. There was a Venus transit in 1761. Most of you remember, not so long ago, there have been 2 transits of Venus. So the previous one was at that date. So Lomonosov used small achromatic refractor, only 70 millimeter. And so as we can see down below, these are words from his report. So Venus was living disk of sun, and the kind of translucent bubble appeared at the planet's edge. A hair-thin line of light shone through. This can be only due to refraction of sunlight in the air of Venus. But the most interesting is below. I concluded that Venus is encircled with mighty atmosphere, the same, and is, if not larger, that rolls around our globe of Earth. Even now, the historians, they argue about why he said, if not larger. Because right now we know it's much larger. Yeah. So he was using simple dark glass. So he just took a candle and used the soot from the candle. And with this small telescope, on the right side, you can see his own drawings, how it looked. So, and he immediately discovered that it's really a light that shines through the atmosphere of Venus. Definitely, there have been attempts to see the same effect in Europe, but in Europe, unfortunately, in most of the places, it was cloudy. So by the time they couldn't see the transit, and the only effectively observed transit was by Lomonosov in St. Petersburg. And that was definitely a great discovery. And as we can see now, this atmosphere is really larger than our Earth atmosphere. So it was big discovery. Okay, let's move on. This is Pulkovo Observatory. It's a classic observatory. It's open even now, and it's working now. Yeah, it's Pulkovo, and let's talk a bit about Pulkovo. So by 1830s, we decided to build new observatory away from city lights. So Pulkovo village, by the time, it was far away from city center. Now, definitely not so. So initially, the project was very ambitious. Russian astronomers, and again, strongly backed by government, by the time at least, they initially had the idea to build the top class observatory. So government assigned a really big funding, about 4 million golden rubles. I don't know how much it's going to be now, but 1 ruble was good money by the time. So they've ordered, you can see from on the right side, you can see this 38 centimeter refractor. And on the left side, you can see the main building of Pulkovo Observatory. You can see this road. This road leads to St. Petersburg. And you can see this circle is a Pulkovo meridian. You know, Greenwich meridian, and the other meridians, so it was the Pulkovo meridian. So they decided to build this well-equipped observatory. So by 1885, it was massively developed. And again, on the right side, you can see this grand refractor. It's a 30-inch refractor. It was ordered from United States, from Alvin Clark. Now it's the 4th largest refractor in the world. So it was permanently established 60 astronomers, and they had maybe 20 instruments as such, laboratories. And you know what's important? Pulkovo was one of the first observatories in the world that paid lots of attention to astrophotography. So actually, they started the astrophotography by 1870s. Yeah. And Pulkovo was specialized in astrometry and binary stars and spectroscopy, and they published several fundamental star catalogs. As I remember, maybe 20 of fundamental catalogs. So by the time Pulkovo was frequently visited by European and American astronomers, it was actually the cultural center and astronomical center in Europe. You see, even American astronomer Benjamin Gould, he was so impressed when he'd been to Pulkovo, and he said, no modern astronomer can consider himself familiar with the most comprehensive equipment and observation method without visiting Pulkovo. In our days, this astronomy capital of the world. It was that well equipped, and as I heard, the very organizational work and observation, it was top notch. Famous Schiaparelli, well, we all heard about the canals of Mars. So, but he was working for 1 year in Pulkovo as a postgrad, and he saw these canals with a great refractor. I heard a story that his scientific supervisor, Russian astronomer Professor Tsaraski, he was not happy at all. He said, man, you're just wasting time and just using this expensive instrument for watching for some canals. So that's a real story. Yeah. This is the first ever color photo of Mars. So made in 1906 in Pulkovo on this great refractor. So you can see the picture of this man. He's a Professor Tikhov. He was a prominent astronomer and actually one of the pioneers of astrophotography in the world. So, and here you can see these 2 color filters, this red and green. So, and here are the glass plates that we used to make this color picture, Mars. And I remember I was reading biography book of Gavril Tikhov, Professor Tikhov, and he said by the time it wasn't easy to find the good photographic plates, so they had to make the photographic emulsion by themselves at the observatory laboratory. Yeah, so this is the first color image of Mars ever made. So again, because Pulkovo was famous, and let me add, it is famous for precision astrophotometry, variable stars and asteroids and binary systems. And indeed, they keep over 40,000 of glass photographic plates, and you can see the year. So the first regular photographic positional astrometry started in 1893. And the oldest photographs in Pulkovo that date back to this year. I've seen one of them. I think the size of a glass plate is, if I'm not wrong, it's like 4 inch by 6 inch, something like this. It's quite big. Yeah. Well, so this is the Moscow Observatory, built by mid-century. So it was built for the purpose, especially for the university. Yeah. Now it's a museum. It's very well kept, and it's beautifully restored. Just take a look at these pictures. On the left side, we can see the office of the director of this observatory, and here, yeah, we can see these are working cabinets and everything. So now it's a museum. You can see the portraits and the prominent astronomers. Yeah, and there are really, really rare exhibits, because this observatory exists for already almost 200 years, and just take a look. So this is the largest telescope in Moscow Observatory. So it's 380 millimeter double photovisual refractor. It was actually, yes, used until 50s, maybe even later. I was talking to people from this observatory. Again, now it's a historical museum. It's called a Museum of Astronomical Research. But what is good? Telescope is still in very good condition. And a few times we in Moscow Astronomy Club, we managed to use it. What's special about this instrument? Look, there are 2 barrels in parallel. 1, 2. One is photography, one is visual. So the lenses itself are corrected differently for different colors, because these old photo plates, they had, if I'm not wrong, you can correct me, they had increased sensitivity in blue, white, and violet color. And on the other hand, sensitivity in red was decreased. So those 2 lenses, they were color corrected in a different way. One for visual, one for photography. Yeah. You can see this guy is one of the members of Moscow Astronomy Club. So you can imagine the size of this huge telescope. I've been looking through this scope 2 years ago, and we've been looking for Jupiter. Again, it's an achromatic lens, and lots of spurious color, definitely, lots of. But still, it's a working instrument. So, as I noticed before, in St. Petersburg, in Pulkovo, number of clear night per year is not so good. And it's quite in the north. So Pulkovo astronomers have been always wanting to find some place in the south, at least, to open the branch of Pulkovo. So Crimea, by the time it was a part of Russian Empire, climate is okay there, really. And so Pulkovo sent a team of astronomers just sent there to find a suitable place for at least small branch of Pulkovo to build few observatories. So, and they were surprised because on the mountaintop, they've seen already there is observatory. One wealthy man had his own estate in Crimea with everything, with the vineyards and everything. So, and he was a passionate amateur astronomer, and he built a small observatory just for own passion, well-equipped science reflectors and astrograph. So those two astronomers from Pulkovo, they approached him, and he immediately offered observatory as a gift to Pulkovo. So this is how the Crimean Astrophysical Observatory in Simius has begun. So as I remember, this is the original tower from 1905. Yeah. So you see, it's a beautiful place, and it's overlooking the sea, and probably is the best from the astronomical climate point of view. Maybe it's the best place. So 17, it was the market date of imperial period, because by the time it happened, Russian Revolution. By the time there was 7 professional astronomical observatories, Pulkovo, then one in Crimea, another one in present Ukraine, and several astronomical observatories at universities. So, as I know, Pulkovo, they've been always famous for astrometry, for the positional measurements, but in 20s and 40s, they had really good achievements for the photometry and variable stars and polarimetry and velocity of Saturn equator belt and rings and fundamental catalog. But what's more interesting to me, I was surprised. I remember when I was reading some popular astronomy books in Soviet time, they mentioned something about the first exoplanets research in Pulkovo. And I was surprised when it was. So it actually had begun in 1940s, because by the time there've been already some claims about the exoplanets. These are 2 famous stars, 70 Ophiuchi and 61 Cygni. These are 2 famous stars, and the claims about planetary systems around them, as I know, they were made in 30s and 40s. So, famous Pulkovo astronomer Alexander Dage at Alumni, he was one of the first who started systematic photography of those 2 stars for the positional measurements, because both systems are binary, and they were, how to say, suspected to have the invisible, by the time they call it invisible satellite. Yeah, so that's how it all started. Pulkovo was not the world's first to start this astrometry for the search for exoplanet, but one of the first to join. Yeah. So during the war, Pulkovo was destroyed, but they were lucky to save this lens. Look at this lens. This is me. It's a funny story. I was asking about what happened later with this lens. So when observatory was ruined by Germans, but they managed to hide the lens. So they dismantled the big telescope and they hide the lens somewhere in the cellar of the observatory. So they've saved the lens, but after the war, they decided not to rebuild it, because by the time this huge refractor was already technically obsolete. So finally, this lens was used as optical benchmark at famous Loma optical plant until 90s. This lens, made in 19th century by Alvan Clark in US, it was that good. Now it's in a museum. So look at this refractor. So after the war, Pulkovo was rebuilt, and they installed 650 millimeter Zeiss refractor. This one. That's a huge instrument. It's used even now. Yes, for the fundamental positional astrometry. Yeah. And I was surprised when I look up Just look here. It's completely automated. Now it has a good CCD camera, and now it's a robot telescope. That's how it looks. That's a tower. It's a refractor. Just compare how it looks now and how it looked back then. Yeah, impressive. I can just translate. For example, these buttons mean declination. This means right ascension. This is the floor. This is the dome. This is the shutter. And this. So, and I was asking some old astronomers, and he told me, you know how it was in 70s or in 60s or even beginning of 90s. You astronomers, so what you have to do, you have to put those large glass plates into the camera, astrograph. You had to guide almost manually because the system was never precise enough. So you sit you sit by this control station. They had some kind of an optical sight to guide the star. And he said, man, you know what's the problem? It's okay in summer. In summer it's okay, but December nights are so cold and the dome is open. And he said, in the morning you are freezing. You just want some hot tea. Yeah. That's Pulkovo. There's just a few pictures of Pulkovo. On the left side, you can see the central hall. It's a museum now. Here is one of the small towers with, I think, 6-inch telescope. On the right side, here's a solar telescope with a celestat. You can see the mirrors. And here below, you can see light pollution, because in this direction, you can see the glow from the city lights. Actually, now Pulkovo is only maybe 7 kilometers or so from the St. Petersburg city limit. So it's really city grows, but it's still usable. Still usable. I was asking astronomers, and they say for the positional astrometry, it's still okay. And this huge refractor is really that precise. Focus is 10 meter. Yeah, 10 meter. And I think everybody knows about Mach telescope, Magsutov telescope. And here is the man who invented this Mach, Magsutov. He is Dmitry Magsutov. He's a Russian optician, engineer. So he's the father of this popular system. So he's been, as an engineer, he's been working at Pulkovo for many years. I think he's been working until 60s. And he invented this configuration of Magsutov Mach in 1942. What's more interesting, he was a passionate astronomer, and he always wanted to make a kind of a standard telescope for every school. So he used to say that every school must have a telescope, even the small school in a village, at least a small telescope. So he put really lots of effort to start mass production. Now, this is a small school telescope, 70mm Mach. So it was a ticket to astronomy for many of us. You can imagine the country is still just recovering from the war, but already in 1946, this instrument was put into mass production. And here, this black telescope, he's the first ever Mach he made by himself. And here is this portrait. So, when you observe something in your Mach telescope, remember Mr. Dmitry Magsutov, the founder. So in '57, the first satellite is launched, and definitely there was a growing interest to astronomy and astronautics. And you know, some people told me it was a totally craze about astronomy because the astronomy circles are from almost every school. And public lectures, they gather thousands of people. It's from some old newspapers. So to track the first satellite, because the professional observatories was just not enough, so the Academy of Science launched a wide-scale observation program. I would say, this was the first, we can say, citizen astronomy, public astronomy. So 70 optical stations. You can take a look. Optical station is a small observatory with some optical equipment. So normally they will open a university, college, even high school. In my town, where I was born, now it's Belarus, someone told me there was such optical station at the school. So teachers and students in their free time, they were observing the satellites and reported to National Coordination Center. So it was, I think, the beginning of really widespread public astronomy. So here's the guy observing. If I'm not wrong, the standard equipment there was a 70 or 80 millimeter binocular and a small telescope like this. There's something special in this picture. Take a look. He looks down. There's a mirror. Very unusual arrangement of a telescope. It's a simple flat mirror. So when the sky is reflected in this mirror, and that's how he looks. Convenient. So actually, there's some historical background about how it all started. Actually, in Russia, it started long before the revolution, and the public astronomy circles, or call it communities, clubs, they started well before. Yeah, you can see it's a public observatory in Moscow. This is Mr. Morozov, a wealthy man who put lots of effort to organize and start the public observations in Moscow. So just a few info about that. So in 1922, the first planetarium was built in Moscow. Here is the Moscow Planetarium. This one. Observatory. And in the 50s, it was decided that every town with a population of more than 150,000, if possible, should have a planetarium and public observatory. This is Moscow Planetarium. Moscow Planetarium, and it's inside the observatory. And here, if I'm not wrong, we have 300 millimeter refractor. Yeah, this one. It's a sky park, some exhibits, and the amular sphere, and you see model of solar system and everything. There's another small dome you can see from here. There's a sky globe. Just a few pictures for the planetariums. On the left side, you can see monumental building. Is a city called Volgograd, previously Stalingrad. It's one of the classic, I think for me it's a classic example of the architecture, how the planetarium was built in 50s. Look, it looks quite archaic, like a classical academical institution. Yeah. And you see the statue. The statue is called like something like knowledge is power. Yeah. The second one, I think, in the city Kaluga, and this one is in Kazan city, and it's inside the planetarium. So normally, at least in Soviet time, it was kind of a standard that a planetarium, each and every planetarium, must have an observatory. So now we have 52 planetariums in Russia. I mean, only stationary. So most of them built, I would say, 50 years ago and 30 years ago. But few of them like this one in St. Petersburg. That's a huge one, and it's the world's largest. You know, Russians, they really like to make some things that are world's largest. It's a tradition. I think so. It's been a funny story about this building. For almost 100 plus years ago, before the electricity, it was used to hold the gas for the street lamps in St. Petersburg. For, I think, 100 years, this building was almost abandoned. And they were thinking what to do. Maybe circus, maybe something else. Finally, they come up with the idea of planetarium. So now it's the world's largest planetarium. So you can see it uses 40 projectors, 8K resolution, and the total figure is 100 megapixel on a 37-meter dome. Yeah, I've been there last year. I was impressed. So just a brief overview about the public observatories. So here below, I mean above and below, this and this, these are two standard projects. So because everything was centralized, most, I would say 90% of public observatories were just built on the standard project, this and this, in the public parks, at planetariums, and even in some plants and factories. Look here. Here is the observatory of, before it was the Moscow's largest automotive plant. They've been producing buses and trucks and lorries and everything, and they had own observatory. Yeah. So only in Moscow was 8 public observatories. So there were lectures and gathering and astronomy discussions and everything. So, and definitely astronomy was massively and really massively supported by government. There was a state-funded society called Knowledge is Power. So, and lectures and magazines and astronomy circles at the schools, at the universities. And so these are few observatories that were built in that period. So now they're restored. Look here, again, you can see me with my good friend. This is the observatory from outside, and here it's inside. Now we've installed C14 Casagram. So this is the largest telescope in Russia, 6-meter BTA. BTA called is translated like large azimuthal telescope. So it's on a mountain range in Caucasus Mountain, altitude 2 kilometers. So here it's inside the dome. Yeah, there's a main mirror, secondary. It's actually it's a Casagram. Yeah. And it's still the largest scope in Eurasia until now. Look at the mirror. Here is the mirror. So the mirror weight is 42 tons. Is the control station. And just comparing with the size of a human. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt a little bit, Sergey.
Yes.
Is this go still functioning?
Absolutely. You know, I've been there 2 years ago because it's open to public, and it's, you know, it's not easy actually to organize a tour. You know why? Because there's a huge limitation on the temperature difference between outside and inside the dome. They told me that if the temperature difference is more than 10 degrees, I mean inside and outside of a dome, it's not even allowed to open the dome.
So they're afraid of fractures and...
Absolutely.
And,
Yes. And I think Someone told me it was actually a design flaw. Yeah. They somehow, at Elzos, they somehow missed some technical particularities. And maybe the glass itself was not as good annealed as they wanted. I heard about that story. Yeah. And this is the limitation. So 10 degrees difference, don't even open the dome. Yeah. They have cooling systems, they have refrigerators in the dome, but definitely it limits the use of this telescope. But it's still completely functional and yeah, it's working.
So it is still used for, I mean, serious astronomical research?
Absolutely, and it's permanently staffed. As I know, maybe 50 professional astronomers. They are
Oh,
stationed. Yes, they are stationed.
that's
Not
still a
so far
lot.
away. Just look here. Somewhere here is a hotel and a campus, or maybe somewhere here, maybe here. So yeah, it's open. It's working. Yeah.
Maybe another side question. Do they
Yep.
repaint the telescope after, I mean, is the SSS Air the words? Do they repaint the words?
I think they did. I think they did, but again, you see, it's SSSR Loma. Loma is it's a St. Petersburg Leningrad optical plant. Yeah, but it's a fresh picture. It's unchanged. There's nothing changed there. You can look here and here. There are refrigerators and coolers. Here, here, here. Yeah, and the dome. That's massive. Yeah. So it's still possible to get inside if the weather permits. So yes. And here you can see this mirror. You can see those holes. These are made to make a mirror lighter. The only purpose. But even with these holes, you see, it's like a cylindrical holes. But even with these measures to make a mirror light, it's still 42 ton heavy. So, Chai, I think it's your favorite.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yes,
I
it's
I I learned I mean I learned about this while I was attending lectures on radio astronomy.
yes. Actually, it's this radio telescope Ratan 600. 600 is diameter of the ring. So here is a collector. We call it actually the hub. Yeah. Here is a movable reflector, and here is a control station. Actually, it's not far from the BTA telescope. They place close together. So they were designed initially to work as a complex, BTA for optical and Ratan for radio. And this is how they operate now. And the distance between them is, I don't know, maybe 6 kilometers, like this. They're close. Yeah. It's still the world's largest, again, individual radio telescope. I think now it's not the most modern, definitely. Not the most comprehensive, but still very capable. And again, it's working. And in 2000 something, they've made a huge refurbishments. They've replaced lots of old radio equipment, as I know. Here is the map about the observatories in Russia. So we have 30 plus. I tried to count. I couldn't get the exact figure. Maybe 40. So you can see it's only professionals. So you see, it's Moscow here. Here is Pulkovo, St. Petersburg. Here is Crimean, and here is BTA and Caucasus. And here is a Baikal Lake. So we can see 1, 2, and 3 most favorable places for astronomy in Russia. Again, from the climatic point of view. Here is a solar Red Observatory, Badari. Yeah. Baikal Lake. Here is a famous one. It's actually active planetary radar with impulse power 250 megawatt. It was first in history to achieve a radio region of Venus and Mars and Jupiter. It's in Crimea again. And it was used, I think, until 90s. I'm not sure if it's working now. I don't know. I think it's a bit already obsolete technically. This one again is a Crimean Astrophysical Observatory. This one is a 2.6 meter reflector. It's basic view. It's really good equipped observatory. They have two reflectors by 1.2 meter and Magsutov astrograph and a solar telescope and gamma telescope and whatnot, and even the radio telescope. Here is Gennady Borisov, maybe one of the first, if not the most famous Russian amateur astronomers. He discovered the first interstellar comet. So you can look at his telescopes. All these telescopes are made by himself. You can see they are super fast. Yes. So this one, 192 millimeter. This is himself with his two telescopes, and this one is 65. Again, super fast astrograph. They're really wide field. This one has 10 degrees. Yeah. And this is how Borisov discovered first interstellar comet. So he made those telescopes by himself. I mean, the optics and the mechanics and the electronics and everything. So, yeah. I was talking to him a few times on our gathering, and he said, I couldn't find anything on the market. So, non-media, non-celestron, non whatever. So, he really wanted a huge and really super fast astrograph. He told me I couldn't find anything like this. I had to make it by myself. So here is AstroFest. So now we have about 80 astronomy clubs in Russia. So from Astronomy Forum, we can see it's about maybe 40,000 active emitters in Russia. And here is the annual festival, AstroFest. It's every year near Moscow. Well, normally it lasts 5 days, a weekend. So there are lectures, master classes. For example, Damian Pitch, everybody knows Damian Pitch. He's been to the AstroFest maybe 3 years ago. So we invited him. He was happy to join us. Yeah, so here is the binocular telescope, Newtonian. So see the discussions about astrophotography. Here is the famous telescope. It's, I think, 200 millimeter refractor. Yeah, and on some AstroFests, we just try to count maybe 1,000 guests, maybe, and maybe 300 telescopes or so. So, if in Moscow you ask some amateur astronomer, what's the main holiday in the year? New Year, Christmas? No, AstroFest. So, just a few pictures. Here is a night observation. Here's a contest for astrophotography, just public observation, lectures, everything. This scope is famous. These two guys, they're brothers. They just make a masterpiece of a telescope. It's ATM. It's made in the garage, actually. Fully automated. Half meter. So this gathering we have every year in Moscow in May. As well, a famous project. 3 guys, I know them all again. 3 guys, one of them is wealthy guy, 2 of them not so, but they decided to establish a remote telescope base in Chile, and they did. So here is the largest scope there. Is a Ricci Chrétien, 1 meter. and here is their station. It's completely remote, it's completely automated. They have a website, they have 3 scopes there, and so it's kind of astronomy on demand. So basically it's called pay as you observe. Yeah. Twice a year in Crimea we make called Southern Night Festival. It's for 3 weeks. And Crimean Observatory, you see on the pictures below, it's a night observation. Sky is quite good there. It's quite dark. And you see this radio telescope, it's on the beach. And we used to joke it's the world's only beach equipped with its own radio telescope. Yes. So it's here. I think that's all. I think that's the most part of my presentation. You can take a look at the picture. It's a Moscow Sternberg Institute. It's a main astronomy institution, academic institution in Moscow. And every September we have this program, Public Astronomy, 100 hours of astronomy. So thank you for listening. I just hope it wasn't too boring. So you're always welcome to Russia and join our AstroFest, because we have the same sky above us. It's just a few words about me. Well, before I had me a job in the aerospace, and I was participating in the communication ComStats program from the engineering department. I was working at the design bureau, and 1, 2, 3, let me count, 3 satellites. We've been launching like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and a few times I've been at the launch site at Baikonur. And luckily I know some cosmonauts, astronauts, so we just worked together, and I was just really lucky to share a few years of my life with this job, aerospace. And by my work I'm traveling a lot, because now I'm working in a gold mining company, so sometimes I'm just traveling as a tourist, sometimes just for job. And I remember I was observing lunar eclipse at minus 50 degrees in Siberia, and I gathered mining guys around me, and I was explaining something. And one of them told, look at this guy, it's minus 50 below. He's almost freezing, but he's so passionate about astronomy. I had the same experience in Zimbabwe in Africa, when I just gathered village people and explained what is Saturn, what is Jupiter, and what is what. So it was a pleasure for me. And on this picture, it's a Moscow Astronomy Club observatory in the Gorky Park. You can see this is a C14 installed not long ago, in some maps and everything. So usually we have public observations at least twice a week. So I think that's all. Thank you. Chai.
Thank you very much, Sergei. Yeah, let me check if there's any questions.
Oh, yeah.
Michael, do you receive any question?
No. I'm checking on the Facebook site. Basically, most are just did you see the question by Dr. Chok?
No. Did he ask any question?
I think he asked Sergei to say some word about activities of the Moscow Astronomy Club and also radio astronomy in Russia.
Oh, yes, indeed. First, my best regards to Dr. Chong. I was really pleased when I met you in Penang. And just a few words about the activities. So right now, definitely, due to this virus time, we are limited in activities. But what we do usually? Usually we have at least one monthly gathering. And the public observation, again, if weather permits, we just do that twice a week. And what about the street astronomy and public outreach? We try again, depending on weather, to organize such observation maybe once in a month, twice in a month. if something really interesting, some astronomical events happen, so we used to organize a street party like this. So we bring few scopes, and or we open the observatory in the park. We just gather people, so anyone can join. And about the radio astronomy, a few weeks ago, I've been participating. My friends invited me to Dage Astronomy Institute. It's actually here. This is the institute. So and now they have a really good result from radio astron program, from the satellite, from the space observatory, a radio astron. And so, as I know, actually the results in radio research are really good now. And by the way, just a couple of days ago, I've heard in the news that largest in the northern hemisphere neutrino telescope is launched at Baikal Lake. This is this telescope with the underwater detectors, and I think now it was an international cooperation, and they chose Baikal Lake and they chose the underwater detectors to catch those solar neutrino, and it was actually only launched and commissioned a couple of days ago. So we have some good news. Some new project is moving on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your answers. There's no more questions.
Thank you.
So, Chai, pass you.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you so much for, for your talk, Sergei. And no
Okay.
more questions from you
Okay.
too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was happy to give this lecture to you. So again, thank you for listening, and I just wish you all clear sky. Wish you all clear sky, and goodbye and all the best.
Yeah, thanks for the interesting,
Thank you.
interesting sharing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergei. Hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope to. All the best and
You
clear
too.
sky. Yes.
Okay, Chai, do you have any closing? Yeah.
I think nothing much. I think nothing much since we don't have much question about it. But I think if if other participants still have some questions, or if the audience you have some question, you can still post it, and maybe we can try to redirect it to him afterwards. Yeah, I think that's all. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, so for all the audience, if you enjoy our session, you can check out our previous session on our Facebook page, Astronomical Society of Penang, as well as our YouTube channel, also Astronomical Society Penang. We have all archive of all our past online session on AstroCafe, and also the Astronomy Picture of the Day virtual tour, and some others special event discussion. And feel free to follow our page and also subscribe to our channel for our future activities. And thank you for joining us tonight. Hope to see you again. Good night.
Good night.